And what's up, everybody? Welcome into Hockey Sense once again. Another edition brought to you by First Community. Great to have you with us, as always, live from our Half Coast studios. I'm Andy Strickland. It's great to have you with us for another Friday tradition that we do here each and every week. Man, a quick turnaround. We had the Blues last night. They beat the Islanders 1-0 in overtime. What a game. I mean, what a game. Joel Hofer was incredible. You know, a few days ago, people kind of give me trouble on the on Twitter when I said the Blues have one of the best, if not the best goaltending tandems in the league. And when I say that, I'm not talking necessarily about Jordan Binnington. I think most people understand Jordan Binnington is a top goaltender, a top-tier goaltender in the NHL. I mean, when he's on his game, I've always said this about Jordan Binnington. This guy is a top 10 netminder in the National Hockey League. But my point in saying that was to let people know how good this Joel Hofer is and how good he will be down the line. I mean, true, legit number one potential. And with Binnington with a couple of years left on his contract, the future is bright. The present is bright. You've got to have two goaltenders nowadays. You can't just have one. You want to rely on one. It's kind of hard to do. It's kind of when I get into the Igor Shesterkin situation, when I talk about how, I mean, can you really call the goaltender the best player on the team? I guess you can, but when they play 70% of the games, and there's 30% of the games they're not even playing. They have zero impact whatsoever. That's why I don't know if you pay him $12 million. I guess you can. But Jordan Binnington makes $6. Joel Hofer is on a entry-level deal right now, which is just crazy. Hofer's going to get paid down the road. He made some incredible saves last night. Bo Horvat is probably... he didn't sleep very well last night for the Islanders. He had multiple grade A chances and just couldn't finish. A lot of that had to do with Hofer. Some of it was just luck on the Blues side because Horvat was missing wide open nets. Listen, fun show for you here today. We've got Donnie Granato joining us, former head coach of the Buffalo Sabres, former head coach of the U.S. National Development Team. Coached a lot of great players that you see in the NHL today, including Austin Matthews and Charlie McAvoy and Clayton Keller and Adam Fox and Matthew Tkachuk, all these guys, man. That 1997 to 99 birth year is certainly created and developed some incredible talent out of the USA hockey program. People are starting to put together those rosters now for USA and Canada for the upcoming Four Nations tournament, which is always fun to do. I mean, but how many of those players are going to be coming out of the U.S. program? A lot of them. Outside of a guy like maybe Kyle Connor, who's one of my favorite players, too, from Winnipeg. I mean, Kyle Connor is one of the most underrated goal scorers in the league. But most of the players are going to be fresh out of the national team development program. But anyway, last night's game, man, just a fun, exciting game to watch. I know some people said, hey, it was a little boring early on. Maybe so. I mean, the Islanders are a tight-checking team, and they don't give you a whole lot. But I thought the Blues, their best players showed up last night. I thought Thomas and Kyrou had a real good game. They looked dangerous, especially in the second period. They really started to come on. I like the fact that they were put back together. Listen, I don't think Kyrou and Thomas have to play together all the time. I'm not one of those. I think you put them together, get them going. You know, Thomas obviously likes playing with Kyrou. I thought Brandon Saad was good last night. Made some good plays, showed his speed. I got in on the forecheck, was first to pucks, won races, and was able to create some plays and some scoring chances from below the goal line, which is great to see. And listen, that's got to be the Blues game, to be honest with you. I mean, they've got some players who can create off the rush, but a lot of the players are going to have to be hard forechecking players who create their chances from below the goal line. And we saw that last night. I thought the Blues defense looked good. I like Ryan Suter playing with Colton Parayko. Listen, when they first signed Suter, I automatically thought that he would play with Parayko. Now, listen, Parayko may get additional minutes on the PK, even though Suter's killing penalties and stuff like that. So I never thought that Suter would come here and be in that 22 to 25-minute range every night. But last night, you know, this guy, he played 25-10. Ryan Suter. I mean, rolling back the clock. But this guy looks like he hardly even extends himself when he's out there. Does he even break a sweat? I mean, he makes everything look so easy. And I guess that's what happens when you played close to 1,500 games. You know, he's in the top 30 all-time in games played, top 10 all-time among defensemen. He's going to climb the ladder even more so this year. This is going to be his last year. But his family is in town, man. It was just great to see Ryan Suter kind of enjoying hockey. It looks like he's having fun, that he's enjoying it, being with a new team. I think he's fit in really well. And now he's, obviously been given a great opportunity. Nick Leddy didn't play. Leddy, he blocked a shot the other day. I would tend to believe that's the reason as to why he didn't practice on Wednesday and then subsequently didn't play in the game on Thursday. So we'll see when he comes back. I mean, obviously they're stronger with him back in the lineup, but I don't think you have to play Leddy with Parayko. They were really good last year, but it's not a pairing that you have to be married to. You can interchange certain players, man. I mean, that's just the way it goes. You don't have to keep your deep pairings the same every game. So, do this while it lasts. I mean, it may be terrible next game with Suter with Parayko. You never know, and they may have to go back to Leddy whenever he gets back in the lineup. But for now, man, it looks really good, and they played well together last night. This Philip Broberg, man, and everybody kind of knew it. He was the big fish that they were getting when they signed the two offer sheets, when you looked at him side by side with Dylan Holloway. And Holloway's been a good player too. I mean, the Blues are better with both of these guys on the roster, and you can't tell me that Edmonton isn't worse by not having both of these players, because they are. Edmonton won a big game last night, but I'm just saying, man, they lost two really, really good pieces who would have been a major part of their core moving forward. Huge part of the youth movement. So they come here. They're not only part of the youth movement that the Blues have in store, because they've got a lot of other young players coming. I think next year they're going to have something like 13 to 15 first-round picks, like in training camp or in development camp or something crazy. 5 new players who haven't even been here yet, who are going to be, who are former first-round picks, who are going to participate in development camp next year, who aren't even with the organization yet. They're playing overseas or wherever they're playing. They might be playing in college right now, as is the case with Jimmy Snuggerud. So now you add these two kids with it. But Broberg, man, he's got points in each of the first 5 games of the season, and all different types of points. I mean, obviously he scored a goal, but last night you see him get up ice in the 3-on-3. It makes a nice little sauce right on the tape to Jake Neighbors, who all he had to do was just get a piece of it with his backhand, and they were able to win the game in overtime. Man, I'm happy for Jake Neighbors too. And Jake got off to a slow start last year. I want to say he had 2 goals in his first 15 games last season, and then he got hot and ended up with 27 on the year. Probably would have gotten to 30 if he didn't get hurt and missed a handful of games down the stretch. But Jake wanted to produce. He wants to produce. But he wanted to get one bad last night. He had a chance early in the game, right on the doorstep, and just couldn't get enough on it, and Soroka made a hell of a save. So, but man, what a game. Kyrou and Thomas, again, making plays. I thought Kyrou had a chance to shoot the puck a couple of times in the first period, and this is what happens, man. You put these two guys together. Do they overpass? Yes. Do they pass up on opportunities to shoot, from point-blank range at times? Yes, they do. Is it frustrating? Sure, it can be. But they're elite players, man. Sometimes you just got to let it go. You got to remind them to shoot the puck. And I thought Kyrou came into the second period. He had more of a shooter's mentality. He wasn't passing up on opportunities to shoot. Sorokin, listen, he came to play. He made some great saves for the Islanders. But I like Kyrou and Thomas together with Saad. Buchnevich, playing with Bolduc had his best game of the year last night too, man. Just really working hard, getting back checking, winning battles, stripping pucks, forechecking, hard on the wall, making plays. Had a great pass to Buchnevich. Buchnevich just wasn't really able to generate a whole lot of speed there, and his shot attempt ended up being deflected and went out of play. But I like Bolduc's game last night, and I like the fact that he continues to play. Now, who's going to come out of the lineup now when Alexander Texier is healthy enough to play? And that could be as soon as Saturday night when the Carolina Hurricanes are here. So we'll see. It could be Kapanen. Kapanen was the only player on the roster last night that played fewer than 10 minutes. I thought Matt Kessel had his best game of the season too, which is good to see him play with some confidence, because he wasn't playing with confidence early in the year. I didn't think he had a whole lot of confidence during preseason either. But, having him, playing with P.O. Joseph. P.O. Joseph had his best game as a Blue. He only played one other game in Vegas, but he was just okay in that game. But he looked confident last night. Having his parents in the house was cool. I enjoyed talking to his parents last night, getting to talk to them. How cool is that to have two sons playing on the same team in the NHL? You don't see that too often. 7th time in Blues history that it's happened with the Sutter brothers and the Cavallinis and the Picards and so many others who have played in the past, who have been siblings. But to see two brothers, man, play in the NHL on the same team is a rarity, and it's really cool to see. The Shens have done it before. I talked to Braden Shen about that, what his advice was to P.O. and to Matthew Joseph coming into the season, because he had played with Luke Shen before. So anyway, let's take a break. Let's step aside. We got lots to get into with Donnie Granato. As always, Hockey Sense brought to you by First Community. Get to First Community today. Listen, let me give you the best kept holiday secret, by the way. According to Forbes magazine, the average credit card rate is over 28%, so that's pretty crazy. I mean, 28% is just absolutely nuts. So whether you know it or not, you may be paying that much. You don't even know it. So the rate for the card in your wallet may have gone up. You don't even realize it. It's easy to miss stuff like that, but here's the thing, because you can miss stuff. I mean, if you're like me, you're not paying attention to everything in the fine print. You don't have to pay that kind of rate. And that's the thing with First Community. You don't have to do it. So here's the best kept secret, if you're ready for it. At First Community, the Platinum Visa, baby, with a rate of 7.9%. 7.9, yeah, you heard me right. Annual fee, 0, baby. 0 annual fee. No fee to transfer your balance. You're just not going to find that anywhere else. Apply today, firstcommunity.com. Four Hands Brewing Company, get that mango lemonade, baby. That mango lemonade hard seltzer, the Cam and Strick podcast hard seltzer, get that today. Anywhere you get your Four Hands products. Check out all the incredible locations they have. The downtown location, 1220 South 8th Street. Check out those 1220 Spirits. The incredible location out there in Chesterfield, Kirkwood as well. They got food from Peacemaker at Kirkwood and downtown. Food from High Point at the Chesterfield location. So check that out. Try all the year-round beers, the seasonal beers, man. Do it, and do it today. Four Hands Brewing Company. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Don't sleep on the party goods. You have Halloween parties coming up. Get everything you need at Dirt Cheap. All the best selection of beer, wine, and booze you're looking for. Plus all the paper goods for your Halloween parties, your fall parties, anything else you have going on. Thanksgiving, not too far away. Next month, man, we're going to have Thanksgiving. And then Christmas is coming up. So lots of stuff happening. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop. Download that app today. They've got so many great deals, they call them steals. So do that today. Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop, baby. Lordo's Diamonds, lordosdiamonds.com. Mike and Jimmy Lordo, man. They make it just go. 70 years in business, so you know they're doing something right. Get that special someone, something special in your life. If you're thinking about popping the question, no better place to go. Stop on in. Doesn't matter if you have a $500 budget or a $50,000 budget. Whatever it is, man, they've got something for you, and they'll take care of you. Best customer service you'll find anywhere. Arco Construction, taking St. Louis hockey to the next level, one ice rink at a time. Oh, yeah. They built that beautiful Centene Community Ice Center. They've got the beautiful rink out there in Chesterfield as well. They built Putt Shack. They built Topgolf. What didn't they do? Arco Construction, baby. Blue Note Roofing. My main man, David Novak, you know he's smiling today after that Blues shutout victory last night. In overtime, Jake Neighbors with his first goal of the season. Nobody does roofing like Blue Note Roofing. Look for that yellow truck with the blue notes all over it. You can't miss it. 314-920-5713. I think David's going to join us next week. He was hoping to come in this week. He's got so much business going on that he couldn't make it in. So hopefully we'll do that next week. Looking forward to having him in and talking about everything he does with Blue Note Roofing. Soffit, fascia, gutters, roofing, whatever it is you're looking for, man, they do it, and they do it at the highest level. David Novak, baby, 314-927-5713. Call Blue Note Roofing today. All right, let's step aside. Donnie Granato, former NHL head coach with the Buffalo Sabres. My main man, former assistant coach with the Blues as well. Lots to get into with Donnie. He joins me next here on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Don't go anywhere. All right, good to have Donnie Granato with us. This guy's been coaching for forever. And you've coached at every level, Donnie. You still look young, by the way, so whatever you're doing, that moisturizer's working.
Well, it's a hat. I got thick glasses on. You throw the hoodie on and you look younger right there. So I'm doing my best. I got the gray in the beard though. That's the difference.
Well, that's because you were coaching.
Thanks for the intro, though. Forever. I love the forever part.
That's because you were just coaching in the NHL that'll give you some gray hair right then and there. But
It's a lot for sure.
can I ask you this though? Being a head coach in the NHL, and you've been a head coach at other levels, is coaching, or is it a completely different animal when you get to the NHL?
The coaching part of it is exactly the same. Tactically, technically, the X's and O's, the systems, you know, very minor difference there. And people, you're dealing with people. You're in a leadership position. You're leading people. You're leading a group. I read a lot of books in the off season, a lot of books through the course of the year. And every single business book, it's parallel to athletics, to sports. So that side is exactly the same whether you're coaching the American League or the NHL. The difference in the NHL is you can't make mistakes. You just cannot make mistakes, and your time is precious. And as an example, you get to the rink if your staff in the morning, say you want to get to the rink at 7 a.m. or 6 a.m., whatever it is. Your players will come in at 9 a.m. They're going to get ready they'll have breakfast and get ready. You really can't talk to them then. It's their own space, right? They're in their street clothes. They're going to get changed. They're going to go see the trainer, the stretch out or whatever. You meet with the team at 10 a.m. So that's about, I don't know, anywhere from 5 to 15 minutes. 10 a.m. You're on the ice at 11 a.m. You probably just played last night. You're probably likely to be playing again tomorrow night. That's just the way the NHL schedule is. You get on that ice at 11, you run a half an hour practice. Your assistants take over and do skill work at each end when you finish. And then the big part of coaching in the NHL. You've got 82 games, and twice a day on game day, you're going to see the media. So that's 162 potentially right there. And then every practice day. You cannot possibly say things that people want to hear 162 to 200 and sometimes a season. You just can't. And I would say I don't know if that's the hardest part of coaching. It's a hard part that you don't really realize your time. And again, back to that daily routine, you really didn't get time to talk to the players because your media team is preparing you for your press conference that morning after practice. So you get off the ice, they're giving you, and they're in the locker room waiting to hear, the players' responses, and you're preparing for that. By the time you get done with your day, the players are walking out the door at 1 o'clock because they've got something to do. So time management is essential, but you really get very little time with your player because you're so taken away with responsibility as a head coach, whether it's discussing things with your general manager, your staff. You don't get as much time one-on-one with the player. Obviously, for me, it was a real challenge because we had the youngest team in the league for pretty much the 3 years I was here, and that was a fight I had every day. But the media preparation and when you're just under the bar, if you're a winning team, I enjoy watching other press conferences, and Paul Maurice is a great example. He can have an amazing sense of humor because he's secured in a playoff spot and he's whatever. If you're under the bar and you're 3 points out of playoffs, the last thing you can do is joke around. No one wants to hear you joke around. No one wants to hear you even explain why you lost, because everything you say in a press conference after a game why you lost is portrayed as an excuse. So you're really handcuffed there. It's tedious. That side of it is tedious. There's nothing to not enjoy about coaching in the NHL. It's the highest level, and you're working with incredible people around you, and on the ice, incredible athletes.
Yeah, and emotional media there in Buffalo. There's no doubt, man. I mean, they've been starving for a playoff team now for several years. Haven't been able to get there. It's close to Canada. There's a lot of interest in the Sabres, a lot of interest in hockey too. So you gotta deal with that. But the emotional side of it, I'm just curious that when you're coaching NHL players, and if a player's upset, he's not getting a lot of ice time, he's not playing a lot. Like when you're coaching at the U.S. program, I mean, they're teenagers, right? They're probably a little more emotional, like that they're confused. Why am I not playing? They may come talk to you. Maybe you feel like you have to address it with them a little more to communicate, just to keep them positive. Is there a lot of that at the NHL level, or you just kind of, it's a business?
I'm going to reverse it on you. I would say that it's the junior player. If you think about just an 18-year-old kid, and you or I, or you feel like you're invincible. Your future is still You feel it's in your control. You feel your future's going to be great. You're going, you almost can't be broken at 18, 19, 20 years old. That's different when you're in the NHL. You've got a contract to live up to. You're under a microscope. So I think it's even more tedious. The relationships are even more important. Speed of trust is more of an impact at the NHL than it is at with an 18-year-old kid. So you're asking me about, it was much easier. I don't want to say that you're more mental tough at that age, but you kind of are in a certain sense. Then maybe, as you grow older, as you age, I think that's a natural thing in life. As people age, they're not as, I'm not articulating it well enough, but maybe not as confident, or they're a little more conservative, or they have a little more to protect.
Mm-hmm.
They've got an identity to protect.
Sure.
And so it's different scenarios, but it is very tedious. And in the NHL today, there's so much big money. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Obviously, you can watch that with the salary cap. The agents are more involved. Mm-hmm. You'll get calls from agents faster today than 20 years ago.
The agents will call coaches. Agents will call coaches.
They're a bit of the new parent.
Yeah.
To be quite honest, if you're looking at it,
yeah.
Their player is their player. They're going to lose their player if they're not working for their player. And the agents now are forced, and it's nothing. I don't think, it's not by choice of them, but it's a competitive industry. It is a tough business to be an agent today, and you've got to look after your client every day. So when they're shifted up and down a lineup, or they're down the lineup, you do feel compelled. Okay, I need information. I've got to relay information to my client because he's calling me to find out, why did I get shifted to the third line or fourth line, or why was I skipped over? And I think that's why you have to have incredible communication and patience. There's things you just put your foot down and, hey, I will not tolerate this or that. But I think, in building relationships, you got to have patience, and then you work to draw that line eventually as your relationship develops. But it's tedious part of the NHL and coaching in the NHL now.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I just look at like my experience covering head coaches, and I've always had great personal relationships with all the head coaches I've covered. Whether it was Joel Quenneville or Mike Kitchen or Andy Murray, even Davis Payne, I got to know very well. Ken Hitchcock, and most recently Craig Berube. I mean, all these guys, I could pick up the phone and call any of these guys. I mean, they were just, you kind of were able to establish that relationship with these guys in a market like St. Louis. It may be different in a market like Buffalo, Toronto, for example, Montreal. Maybe there's not as much trust between the media and the coach because there's so much media there, right? The volume of media is certainly probably higher than what you would get here in St. Louis, even though there's a lot of interest in the Blues. And now you have Drew Bannister here. Did you feel like is that something that was new for you too as a head coach? Did you feel like you had those relationships with the media, or was that not the focus for you? It was more about just kind of getting in and out of these press conferences.
Well, I'll give you an idea of the focus for me. You have to build those relationships too. It's a competitive market here in Buffalo. I've had media. You get to know people as best you can, and time permitted. But I've been, in conversations with different media member. Been told, well, hey, I was upset you spoke to that guy and you didn't speak to me. And it's, when you have multiple media, you've got to watch out for that and make sure everybody feels they're being treated fairly and they're not treating somebody or giving out information or meeting one-on-one with somebody and not them. Mm-hmm. So that is a part of it. When I took over 3 years ago, so 3 off seasons ago, I was appointed head coach. It was the end of June. And I can remember that day, and you'll appreciate this, Andy. Just think of the offseason and how much everybody evaluates what a team does and what you acquire or lose in an offseason. Mm-hmm. So I get hired, and it is announced June 20-something. And the draft was a little later that year, and free agency's pending. We had just traded Taylor Hall, Eric Stahl, Brandon Montour, just at the end of the year, the trade deadline. Okay. So I was the interim coach. Now I get named the permanent head coach in June. We are that week that I get hired, we're going to trade Sam Reinhart, Rasmus Ristolainen. Again, we already lost Montour. We lose Linus Ullmark 5 or 6 days later on July 1st. We lose Jake McCabe. And then Jack Eichel at that point would not play for us again. Mm-hmm. And we didn't get a trade done with him until November, I believe. So we lost all of those players. So I had no time to do any, and when you lose Ullmark, Reinhart, Eichel, obviously, Montour, you just think of, oh my God, we have to replace those minutes. And that's when Tage Thompson rose.
Yeah.
Casey Middlestead rose for us, and Dylan Cousins was still in his rookie year, but he elevated his game for us. So, I at that point I had to call on guys to just rise and fill key spots, power play and scoring slots. And a credit to those guys, they did, and put us kind of back in it. We picked Owen Power that same week. I mean, we finished dead last in the NHL. So I'm going into my first NHL season. And I can remember that summer, being nervous because we'd lost so much and just trying to think, oh my God, we just have to survive game to game. And at the same time, you're in a league that demands winning, but we were in a situation that absolutely demanded development. And that's very contradictory at the NHL level. So I guess, Andy, I was grateful that I didn't get that position when I was, 30s, in my 30s or early 40s. I took it on with a lot more experience than I did 20 years ago. And but no, I was consumed with that, and then the media was kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, no, I know. It's amazing. You just mentioned the players. I mean, and Ryan O'Reilly before that. I mean, Buffalo's had so many great players. We don't really need to get into all that, but it's amazing how many of those great players have gone on to help other teams win. And you just wonder why they can't find a way to stay in Buffalo. I guess every player's an individual situation. How hard is losing on a head coach?
Well, back to the what you said, I think the market, this is a challenging market. They bring things forward day in and year out, and it's baggage, but yeah, losing in the end, losing in coaching it's the same. It's the same. It's exactly the same. You are, you're on a complete and utter high when you win, and you just get a surge of energy and adrenaline. And losing is the opposite. It's draining. It's emotionally draining, and you've got to pick up the pieces. You can have a priority list, but you're really the next day only going to be, going into the next game, you're really only going to be able to target 1, 2, or 3 things. And that's it. You're not going to be good at everything, especially when you're a below the bar team. And what I mean by below the bar is you're a team that's not a playoff team, and you're underneath the bar. You're 2, 3 points, 5 points out of a playoff spot. Like I said, it's every day is a complete challenge, and it's the emotional drain when you lose, and then you got to regather yourself quickly when you do win. Because you look at the schedule in the offseason when it comes out, and you, as an NHL coach, you look at that schedule and you think to yourself, there is not an easy game on this schedule. Mm-hmm. It's just not, because you just, there's so many components and factors that, from injuries to fatigue to, just different things. And you always go to the bench every single night and you prepare your team as you would, but there's one unknown. And it's the energy level that your team has compared to the energy level that your opponent has. And you don't know that until the puck drops.
Hey, before we move on, do you know it? Like, before you get fired, like, do you know you're going to get fired? And like it's coming any day. And is this the first time you've ever been fired? Have you been fired before?
I was fired in Chicago with the Wolves. Early on, I was hired by Kevin Cheveldayoff, and we had a great relationship. And then he left. Okay. And then I lasted a very short time after he left, when the new general manager took over. But to answer that, I was asked that down the stretch, the couple of weeks leading to the end of the season, and for me, I grew up and I watched coaches, and I could see the stress they could wear and the stress of the job. And that's why, back to what I said earlier, I'm grateful I didn't get this position, the head coaching position, when I was in my 30s, because I couldn't. My peers at the time, I was an American League head coach, whatever the coach of the year, whatever that award is. I apologize, no disrespect to the American Hockey League by any means, but coach of the year, and I'm watching peers get. I was in the American League when Bruce Boudreau and Mike Sullivan and Mike Babcock's very first year coming out of junior, and many others. And I'm watching those guys get head coaching jobs. And I mentioned those guys; they were ready for it. They were good, solid coaches. But triple that amount of guys that were in my same peer group that got jobs and they weren't ready for it. And I watched them 1 or 2 years and they're out of it and they're not getting another job. And so for me, I thought, you know what, I'm kind of lucky I didn't get a job at that point. And it didn't happen until I was later, but I felt very prepared for it, and grateful that I had the experience I had to tackle all the challenges that there are. Again, the X's and O's are super easy. You can just look at people on Twitter and everybody has it figured out, and it is figured out. It's easy. It's easy to say you should do this and you should do that. But everything's a process, and you got to know you got to know what to prioritize and attack, and what you can do in the context of your next opponent or your injuries. And there's a lot going on, but it's a lot of fun every day.
Hey, what are those first 48 hours like after you get fired?
Yeah. So back to I guess I didn't answer your question. I ran off. That I guess you're in the realm of getting fired, but you're so consumed by your job. For me, I just said, and I was being asked about it, and I honestly didn't care. I cannot be deterred by the fact I might be fired.
Yeah.
I want to get 2 more points. I want to get, our second to last game, we lost in overtime in Florida, and then we won in Tampa. And it's like, you don't get those points if you're dwelling on, oh my, I might be fired. I might be, who are you as a leader if you're worried about getting fired? And it's part of our business. There's a lot of things you can't control, and, perceptions are reality. And there's a lot of things that happen and you don't have, but you just got to keep doing your job. And so for me, I wasn't worried about that. And then the next 48 hours, when a season ends, you can breathe because you don't have to prepare. You're always preparing for the next day, writing down the conversations you have to have, the people you have to grab, the staff meeting. So you can actually breathe, and that's a nice feeling to just have that break.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's what I felt. And I also didn't feel like I felt, I didn't have regrets like we should have done this or we should have done that. I think what's really hard is for people to understand, is not talked about. For every team, there's a max, right? So this team, they could get 98 points. So we could go through the NHL and say, okay, at a max, and probably come to some agreement. Team to team to team. This team's going to get 75 points as a max. This team's 96. But what you don't say is, boy, if they do things wrong, they might be 20 points lower than that. And you never realize that. So I look at all the coaches that were fired in the last year. There's plenty of them where if they didn't do some of the right things, that season would have been a lot worse than it was. But you'll never know that. You'll never see that. It's all happening behind the scenes and dealing with, different challenges behind the scenes that you don't see. So that's an area that I think a lot of really good coaches, there's a lot of really good coaches that never see that. And unfortunately, when you raise expectations in this business, you got to meet them the next year. And if you don't, it's proven that you're probably going to lose your job. So if you do really good, really fast, all you're doing is accelerating expectations or raising them. You have to meet them the next year. And if you don't, you don't. And that's just, again, it's part of the business. You need to accept it. And I certainly do and did. We had a really good year two years ago.
Yeah.
Missed the playoffs by 1 point. And you got to be better than that the next year, or you're in jeopardy of losing your job, and that's what happened.
Yeah, and listen, everybody gets fired. Just for the record here, it's not like it's not a negative when you or a chirp or a shot whatsoever, right? When you talk about a coach getting fired, every elite, every Hall of Fame coach has gone through that The old saying, you get hired to get fired. Hey, I'm sure you're watching a ton of hockey right now. Who do you like to watch? I mean, and let me ask you this. Do you see differences from team to team? Or are there way more similarities than there are differences when you go through the NHL?
Well, there are way more similarities. Even systems, all the coaches are running about overlap of about 75 to 80% of the system that the other guys run in 1-2-2, but they're emphasizing things a little differently. Or, you know, some teams may emphasize compete more than speed, other teams speed more than compete. It's just, but you get to know the coaches and you get to know the personnel through the league. So for me, that's what I'm watching. The different coaches, and they've moved to different organizations, and their coaching style and their emphasis, and then watching that player pool that they have to work with. For me, it's all about getting better. I've had great experience in the last few years, and been, I was lucky to have that experience. Now it's about getting better. So I watch hockey from that standpoint. Mm-hmm. How am I going to get better? And then educating myself. As a head coach, you don't get to watch the league itself. I mean, you're going to watch your team, your last couple games, and keep going over that. And then you're watching your next opponent. So you're getting ready for that next game. You don't have time to watch the whole league. So you learn the league through playing them once, twice, 3 times, and the other coaches. But now it's nice to sit back and watch lots of hockey. And I find myself watching it right when I wake up, obviously when I go to bed because games are on. And it's been very enjoyable to do that and get more of a macro view.
All right, a couple more things for you. You coached at the U.S. program for a long time, and people who don't know, Donnie Granato, he coached, at the college level, the American League, NHL. You've coached everywhere, assistant coaches, head coaches. But when you were at the National Team Development Program, you had all these guys who, have turned out to be just enormous stars in the NHL, from Austin Matthews on down, McAvoy. You can go, Matthew Tkachuk, Keller, Adam Fox, all these guys. But who's the one guy that you're like, I'm super proud of because maybe he didn't have the surefire path that Austin Matthews was going to have being the first overall pick, who really had to grind it out, and now all of a sudden he's established himself as a legit NHL player, and he's going to have a great career, long career.
Yeah, I mean, I'm proud of all of them because you have to fight so hard. McAvoy comes to mind, Jordan Greenway comes to mind. Those are guys that had to battle a lot. To get to where they're at. McAvoy wasn't even invited to our tryout camp. So I got a call from Pat DiPuzzo, who was scouting for Toronto at the time. And then a day or two later, Jeff Jackson, who now runs the president of the Edmonton Oilers. And those are 2 good friends of mine. Both of them, unbeknownst to each other, called me and said, hey, you guys, your tryout camp list came out, and I think you missed a kid. And I remember scribbling the name down, and Patty DiPuzzo calls, and I said, okay, Patty, give me the name. And he says, Charlie McAvoy. So I write it down on my desk, and I go downstairs to practice and leave it on my desk. And I'm going to talk to our player personnel director, but he's out of town. I remember that much, and didn't talk to him that day. Within 48 hours, I get another call, and Jeff Jackson says, hey, I think you guys missed a guy. And I said, all right, I'm grabbing my pen. I said, give me a second so I can write this down. I said, who is it, Jackson? And he says, a kid named Charlie McAvoy. And wait a second, I'm shuffling my papers, and it's the same kid.
Yeah.
So I go back in my book, and from the U15 camp the summer before, and there's a couple hundred kids in the camp, and I'm putting literally A's, B's, or C's by the kids that I liked. Mm-hmm. And you're not going to remember all of them. So I shuffled through to find McAvoy, and there was an A next to his name.
Really?
And I didn't have many A's. So I thought, boy, we better get this kid in camp. So he wasn't even coming to our tryout camp. But yeah, and Greenway was another one. You could see that a heart of gold, and he really was attentive and needed to learn a lot, but wanted to learn a lot. Mm-hmm. And he made himself in an NHL athletic body, and his athleticism was great, but the work he put in to becoming a player was significant. So
yeah, no, McAvoy, he told me a great story one time about how he got the text or a phone call when he was in class in high school, or an email or whatever it was, saying, hey, when he got the actual invite, hey, and which is awesome. And listen, sometimes you are going to miss some guys. I mean, I don't think Austin Matthews was one of the first. A lot of times 5 guys are have guaranteed spots when you enter the tryout camp. A lot of guys know that they're already on the team, or they're going to make the team. You know, I mean, and as good as he is, I don't think you guys knew a ton about him before he came to the tryout camp. You can correct me if I'm wrong. You know,
He didn't have one. Matthew Tkachuk was signed early, and he was not, and that was something that we bring the kids in on visits. Austin Matthews came in about 3 months before the tryouts. We put him in practice, and the coaches all after practice were like, "Holy smokes, is this kid good? I mean, this is impressive." And so we grabbed the director of player personnel at the point, and we said, "Please," I said to him, "please tell me you have him signed. He doesn't have to, he's coming to the tryout, obviously, but sign him before." He's like, "No, we don't need him signed. And he's coming, and we'll get him if we want him." And my point was, we want him. We definitely want him. So he was impressive immediately. For whatever reason, we didn't sign him right away. Anytime you do sign a guy early, it just creates another mess for you because everybody else expects it too, and then they feel there's favoritism right away.
Okay. Hey, last thing for you. I would imagine you want to get back behind the bench. How patient are you? And what do you think the future holds for Donnie Granato? You expect to coach again?
Absolutely. And everything I do is in preparation for that. Again, I have tons of hindsight. I want to reflect on it. I think, I talked to teams over the summer here, or teams that inquired with me, and, I just felt I hadn't decompressed yet to jump into another commitment. I mean, you've got to be committed when you, and everybody is committed. So for me to jump right into something, as an assistant coach is a major commitment. And I just feel that I felt at the time I needed to decompress and soak in the experience I had to make certain. I know I'm a head coach. I've done it long enough. We had lots of challenges here and moved a team, pretty far from the roster that I said we started with. Mm-hmm. So head coach is it for me. And I'm very patient, knowing that every day I'm still getting better, and we'll be better prepared for whenever that day happens. And I'll keep doing the same, preparing.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I know you will. And you're one of the smartest hockey people I know, Donnie. So whoever gets you will be lucky to have you. So
Andy, thank you very much.
Okay. So listen, great to catch up with you. We'll be in touch, man, for sure. Thanks for doing this as always.
I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Okay.
Thanks.
You too, Donnie. Take care. That's Donnie Granato. Great guy. And listen, I love the opportunity to talk hockey with. I could talk to Donnie for another hour, to be honest with you. But we got to get to Jamal Mayers too, who's hanging out in the green room. Hey, First Community. Listen, they got this Little Blues program. It's the best program going if you want to get your son or daughter into hockey. Sign them up for Little Blues. I did it with my son. Now he's in Notre Dame this weekend, now playing in a tournament. I can't even be there because I'm working NHL games. I'm working Blues games this weekend, and that is hard. When you're a parent, you can't watch your kid play for the weekend. Live Barn is down at the rink, too, so I don't know how I'm going to get through this. My focus is all over the place right now. But we'll be okay. First Community, by the way, Little Blues. Nobody supports hockey in the St. Louis area more than First Community. Sign your son or daughter up today. They get all the equipment, 6 ice times. It's a low cost, great experience. I was talking to a few people last night who came up to me and said, hey, listen, we love the fact that you promote Little Blues. We signed our son or daughter up. We just got through with the first session. We're going to do it again. Those are the stories I like to hear. Send me the photos of your son or daughter playing in Little Blues. All right, let's get out of here. We'll come back we'll be right back. Jamal Mayers, Stanley Cup champion, joins me next on Hockey Sense, brought to you by First Community. Don't go anywhere. All right, so we're having trouble connecting with Jamal Mayers, so we'll do it again next week. We'll get Jamal back in here. The Blues and the Carolina Hurricanes tomorrow night. I'm looking forward to this one. Carolina's always a good team. I never know what to expect from Carolina, to be honest with you. Each and every year, you just think like maybe this is the year, and they make the playoffs every year. They're always a contending team. They kind of remind me of the Blues for several years before they finally got over the hump and got to the conference final in 2016. They had all these great teams for years before that. Couldn't get over the hump, couldn't get out of the first round. Carolina probably a little further ahead than that in terms of having some postseason success, obviously, going deep into the postseason, but just can't get over the hump. They can't get to that Stanley Cup final. So, nonetheless, man, they're coming into town, Rod Brindamore and all. And they got some good players. This is going to be another test. I wouldn't expect the lineup to change very much. I'm curious. We'll find out later today at practice what the plan will be with the goaltending. I guarantee you the plan was to go back to Bennington prior to the game. Does that change now with Joel Hofer getting a 34-save shutout? Does that change? I don't know if it does. I wouldn't have a problem with it if they went back with Hofer, and I certainly wouldn't have a problem with it if they go to Jordan Binnington. The game with Binnington the other night against Minnesota was, I don't know what to think of it. He didn't face a ton of shots early in the game. Then all of a sudden he's got a breakaway coming his way. They scored a shorthanded goal on a breakaway. The Blues weren't very good in front of him. I will say the Blues are going to have to find a way to generate more offense. You'd like to see them score more. I mean, winning 1-0 is unrealistic in the NHL to be able to do that on a consistent basis. That's just not going to happen. So you'd like to see the Blues find a way to get more offense going. And listen, that's going to come. But there's a lot to like, man. You win a game last night. Now, listen, the tone would be completely different if they were to lose that game in overtime. We'd be talking about the lack of offense. Where is the offense right now? But, they still have good players who are out of the lineup. And, I said this before the season, but all these different pieces, what's it going to look like? We're starting to see it a little bit because we knew it would take, 10, maybe even 20 games before you can truly get a feel for what the identity of this team is going to be like. They tried, Dylan Holloway coming into the season, playing with him with Robert Thomas. Well, now they're saying he's probably better and best suited down the lineup playing with Braden Shen. I thought they played well last night, man. I thought Holloway had one of his better games. He was skating. He looked dangerous on occasion. Early in the game, he had a good scoring chance. I thought Braden Shen had one of his best games. A lot of guys played well against the Islanders. Now, Shen had that great chance, came in with speed on the breakaway, had that 5-hole wide open. Easy for me to say. Tried to go to his forehand and just, couldn't get it in there. Ended up hitting the post, had a scoring chance that followed up right after that. Couldn't score. But you know what? If they get that type of performance out of Braden Shen and his line specifically, then they're going to be in good shape. So I liked a lot of things in the game last night. Let's hope that continues. I hope you enjoyed this edition of Hockey Sense brought to you by First Community. Always tune into the Cam and Strick podcast as well. We've got some great interviews coming up for you there. But First Community, man, the best in the business when it comes to banking. I mentioned Little Blues. I've mentioned the best kept secret. Go to firstcommunity.com and go there today. Four Hands Brewing Company, Dirt Cheap Fun, your one-stop party shop, Arco Construction, Lordo's Diamonds. Blue No Roofing, baby. Call David Novak and call him today, 314-920-5713. Talk hockey with David. He's chomping at the bit. He wants to talk some hockey, but he also wants to fix your roof and give you a beautiful roof. Siding, gutters, soffit, fascia, whatever it is you're looking for. Call him today. Look at that big yellow truck with the blue notes all over it. 314-920-5713. All right, we thank everybody here at Half Coast Studios for Aiden and everybody affiliated with this edition of Hockey Sense, including Donnie Granato, longtime coach, recently fired by the Buffalo Sabres, but was the head coach of the Sabres as soon as last year. Somebody's going to hire this guy. He's a smart, very, very intelligent coach. And he's got the bloodlines too, man. Comes from a great hockey family as well. So we appreciate Donnie for joining us. But I'm Andy Strickland, reminding you to keep your head up and your stick on the ice. We'll do it again next Friday. Have a great weekend, St. Louis.